Thank you so much, Neil. And thank you, Sinead, as well. Oh, so lovely to be here. I haven't been in Newcastle for about 20 years. And then it was like we were shipped in, did a reading and shipped out again. But this time, I'm going back on the later train tomorrow so I can have a look round. But it's wonderful to be invited here this time. So I'm going to start with a poem called The Hottentot Venus Hails Botticelli's on the High Seas. It's a little bit ironic to me, this poem, because it was published as Poem of the Week by Carol Rumans in The Guardian a few weeks ago. And it was one of the first poems I started writing for the book. But ironically, it was one of the last poems I finished writing for the book. It took me that long to figure out how to do it. And I didn't read it too much because I was still not sure about it. But ever since it was published in The Guardian, I think, I've got carte blanche now to read it. So this is The Hottentot Venus Hails Botticelli's on the High Seas. Venus. I am the other one cast in the wake of your wash, calling to you in my own voice. The milky opalescence of your thighs is alibi to the damned creaks of our deluge of stories. Your floating existence, a cold blade of mirror, a shelf-worn canto of myth, a wearying wall of black women's unsaid names. Your face is our stopped time, as if you're the only woman in this coarse world. As if we are not all crafted from the same mud as you. As if it's possible that we can all look the same at night. Foam-born one, this name is an exhaustion to wear without a scallop shell. Our stripped torsos painted with the theatre of thorns blown by your small white gods. O Pudica, bloodless eater of hearts, who will leach the salt from tears, from sweat, from all our seas and our endlessly gazed upon vulvas and palpated vaginas? For you, ghost ocean swells laugh, while I am pressed into the again of hiss and roar in salt spray into the barrel straits between tides. And one of the lovely things about Carol Rumans' analysis of the poem is she picked up on the fact that it's narrated by a ghost, because I didn't make that explicit. But I think the position in which it appears in the book makes it quite clear. If you're allowed reading the poems and following it, you'll realise that Sarah Baartman has turned into a ghost at this point. So I want to read a poem which I think makes it a bit clearer that she's a ghost. It's called Bone Fever Dream, and it's a haibon, or a series of haibons. Barefoot in the land of thirst, Bavienskloof wilderness of the great Karoo, she walks blood back into grass-smudged plateau that midriff the land. Stone heaps in narrow passes mark halting places on the road, and after adding her stones to the cairns, she throws chamar melon seeds into the air and walks on, covering the back of her head with her hand. Two mountains exhale. A gust lodges in her chest, chews like sand crystals. Gales from the Indian Ocean make a sail of her carrosse, grouting grains of sandstone into every gorge and ravine. In the valley, ghost cattle kraals dot scrubland scythed by the bull eland's curved horns. The great migration of bones, ribs of red-hearted beast, found open, scapula of springbok, coccyx of quagga, tidals up to greet her. This is the way bones left out in the open colonize the veldt. Time slows to curdled clouds, lightning without thunder, bone wind, gambling dust devils, rib cages pile into cairns where sacrum carves deep into cliff, a body set of fetal bones wandering, looking for its skull. At the estuary of the Gamtus, she flows back upstream. Near Hanky, her heart leaves, travels on without its host. Silt of the river between her toes, where her mother ate fire. A red song rolls out of her mouth like storm fog as bones shift into women smearing rushin they brought back from the seashore on their hands to firm their grips on rock. They open their mouths to show tongues cut out and why they cannot join in her ululation. A rain wind rises in the south. A river cries as they point north. Her mother gives her the tortoiseshell necklace again and says, "Hair will grow on your buttocks if you listen to stories during the day." Then rubs aloe, sheep fat, and cow dung all over her to guard against ganugu, and the Khoikhoi then Khoikhoi then tells her to follow the spoor of Hemsbok fossils. A hammercock bird shrieks a high yellow octave. A star falls to earth. You guys are so quiet. I know you're so still and quiet. But it's great that you're laughing. So I'll read just one more poem in this section. Half the book is dedicated to Sarah Baartman, and then it has these black pages dividing it almost exactly halfway through. And then I go into more of my Ewa heritage, which I'll read a couple of poems from, and then into ekphrastic poems. And I had no idea how many ekphrastic poems I wrote till I started putting the book together. And it seems it's a thing I like to do. I like to go to art galleries and turn paintings or artworks into poems. Yes, so I'll read a couple more from Saki's section, and I'll read from Freak Sonnets for Lusus Naturae at Bartholomew Fair, Natural Born, Man-Made and Counterfeit. And a mouthful of a title. There are 10 sort of freak sonnets in the sequence. I'm not going to read all 10. I think I'll read just a couple. So we've got mermaids. We've got a very tall Dutch woman. We've got a very fat woman. We've got a Windsor fairy who is a very small woman. A bearded woman. Can I get any votes? Bearded woman? Bearded woman. Bearded woman and Dutch woman. Okay, we'll start with the Dutch woman. Miss Van Dyke, the tall Dutch woman, thinks of her face as an unexplored, difficult to ascend place. I cannot stand the silence, so it's the din of the stage for me where I can sway among the rafters to the spiel of the barker and stalk the boards to the rasp of the hurdy-gurdy and gauge of long drum. It's true, I have stumbled and fallen many times, but I am also spiritual sister of giraffe-necked women, those daughters of stilt-walking titans. You all want too much for your shilling, but I bear this greatness which has been thrust upon me on a graceful scaffold you all want to scale. Home is sawdust and grease paint. King is the spit snarl of the rabble half cut with pale ale. In my dreams, I always dance a minuet with someone tall enough to make my audacious proportions feel petite and delicate without having to bend and stoop, even as the plume of my hat, once so tall, now droops. Okay, where's the bearded lady? Okay, yes. Miss Sidonia, married twice, then retired, a very wealthy woman who lived a long life. When Niku was 12 days old, God sent me the downy fuzz that sprouted into this chestnut-coloured beard. I will not take it off. How else would you, the hoi polloi, clock me? Not quite wolf, this capricious fork in the course of evolution is a church of marvels, an edifice fashioned for your insistent titillation that has made me rich. So if this visage is to be my inheritance, let it be a diamond in the sty, a lure to hook into the lip of the mob. This hirsute stunner means I cheated death, I fought and won. I am a sight to silence the baying crowd, and I believe in beating my own gong. That makes me beautiful and owing no favours. I bow now to the deities who gamble in my whiskers. They're quite defiant, these women. So I'll now turn to the other half of the book, and I will start with some poems, maybe one poem, because I have some long poems, and this one is a long one. And this is a poem that really taps into my Ewe heritage. Now, Ewe is a tribe in Ghana, and there's, one of the reasons why I really wanted to include a lot of Ewe heritage poems is because I read somewhere, if you're not fully immersed in the Ewe language, if you're not fluent in it, it's tantamount to self-excommunication. And that put the fear of God into me. So I decided that because, I live in London, it's not possible for me to become fluent in it because, it lacks that immersive thing that you need to become fluent. So I decided I was going to learn a lot about the mythology, the philosophy, the history, the cosmology, and there's a big sort of cosmology and ritual around twins, and twins occur a lot in my family. And the female twins are called Eyi and Echa. They might have their other names, but they're called Eyi and Echa. So Vinaviwo means twins, Eyi and Echa. And this poem, I think of it as a little story poem. It looks like a story on the page, but I think of it as a poem. Nobody knows why Vina washed her hands in her own birth waters that she had stored in the 2 little painted clay pots. Not that knowing would have changed anything in that yellow time of her wechocho. Many months after the juvenile termites had come, dropped their wings, coupled up, and gone to build new mounds. When she put the axokui on their wrists and buried the umbilical cords at the front of the decaying colonial fort to save for the twins' outdooring, a sound like all the whispers that were ever uttered seeped out of her lungs. In her keening to forebear kin, who left footprints in laterite, she heard, They are here to prepare us for what is to come. At first, Vina thought they would be a synonym for each other, but Echa, the elder, with cupped hands and elbows akimbo, as if she was dancing agbaja in a frenzy of womb fury, edged out, quick as a fish, from between Vina's thighs. It was unsettling how quiet she was, how her eyes immediately focused. Ayi, the younger, sorry, I've got a really horrible cold. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but you know when you get that tickling up your nose and you think you're going to sneeze? Oh, let me look at the light. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. It was unsettling how quiet she was, how her eyes immediately focused. Ayi, the younger, fearful of the world and her, fearful of the world and its palavers, but tired of having to carry both their souls like a cipher for ancestral habits, felt like her tiny body would eat itself as she blinked her way into second life. She could feel the earth holding her close in its bubble of breeze, and although she knew it's always better to be two, she still wondered what questions her own body should now ask. They married on the same day. Before that, nobody truly knows why they carried Akwaba dolls around the market in the month of Afofia. Ayi was widowed early, but not before she was disowned by her husband because of childlessness, and after he had taken on a second wife who he called Jijonu, a thing that gives happiness. And not before he had sent a bottle of her palm nut soup to her family in disgust. Pepper and ginger not the same. His voice that day was close to the scalp, a brutal crop. When he died, she would quickly forget what his voice sounded like, as if memory is vegetable and can just rot. Echa was sure a visit marriage with her sister would do right by all of them, but her son's spirit did not want to come near her calabash after that. He received his father's soul in a dream when he deliberately stepped on the forbidden stone buried within the buttress roots of a flamboyant tree. Although Echa tried to cool the road with an offering of beads at the crossing place, the empty space her missing son carved brought the edge of salt to her soul and the memory forged in her spine of the long exodus walking backwards and westwards out of the walled city of Noche. No one said a twin had died. They said she was a body blinking in the bush, fetching firewood. Okay, last one. Okay, the last one I want to take from one of my ekphrastic poems, and so I do like reading this one. It's called In the Company of Trees, and it was written after David Hockney's Bigger Trees Near Water. That was in the Tate's gallery for a while, and it was it was in a square room, and there was the painting, and the painting covered a whole wall, and then somehow they'd done two facsimiles of the painting, so they had the painting on three walls, and so it felt like you were in a forest when you were in that room. And I got a commission to write about that room, and I invited some poets to do so with me, and then we performed the poems in the room. So we all wrote poems inspired by this painting, which were all very different, and performed them in that room. It's quite special. In the Company of Trees. Sycamores know that not everything has the luxury of roots. Their masterstroke is knowing they carry the seeds of greatness within. Hewn to butcher's block, a druid's wand, that shed, daubed heroic on canvas, whittled to pixels by the artist on an iPhone. He paints no coyotes here, not a breath of sea-cool breeze, no quaver of bird song, no grateful shade, or even a rumour of salt. Not one shadow. The raw pushed language of flowers is fickle and fleeting. The roads so small they have no white lines bend their spines like mother's love. Here, the fields are wide. Trees stand tough and watchful like Goliath. This henge of sycamores breathes in when he breathes out, steady in symmetry of purpose, straight as a surgeon's incision. They own all the fairy tales anyone has ever told. As the green man dream catches in tightly furled buds, they mutter about the prince with the shoe fetish, upstart bloodsuckers and dwarfs. They'd colonize the moon with singing dragons and sycorisks given half a chance. Still, Cyclops keeps a close eye on the painter across the path. He stops when the winter sun dips beyond the range of his squint. I never hold inquests or brood, he says. Always bigger things to do. Bigger tree, the bigger splash. Why not a canyon? He'll need bigger brushes, that's for sure. Tomorrow, there might be no sun. Vivid hues muted to liver, asparagus, the milk of cataracts. Eventually, the trees grow small, a blood orange smudge behind him, still pulsing their lungs into the biggest blue above. Thank you so much. Thank you.